Welcome back, Project X, or now officially known as the Arden Supercharged Arden 8-port Rotrex thing, project, job, something like that. If this is your first time watching the vlog of me building up this Project X, this Supercharged 8-port, then you need to follow the link that I'll put somewhere above my head to the previous videos. So we'll start off with a little bit of housekeeping. Last Sunday was now, just after episode 7 went live, I had an email from John at Specialist Components answering the question that I'd asked about the oil cooler. And the answer is that the oil cooler doesn't come as part of the kit, which he himself finds odd, because, I mean, the kit from Rotrex, not from Specialist Components. All the fittings are included in the Rotrex kit, but no oil cooler, and it shows it in all the diagrams as I showed last week. So he told me what I needed to get, and I've got one, and I'll show you that in a minute. Hope you enjoyed episode 7. If all goes to plan, this will be episode 8. In episode 7 I did talk about showing you some of the work that I'd done on the timing end that I did previous to filming episode 7, if that makes sense. So it's a little bit out of order, but anyhow, that's coming up next. Okay, let's start off on this end cover. This is the pulley that I've previously shown you, and this is the ring gear style trigger wheel that came, that was supposedly the same size as this was supposed to be. This was bang on 114mm, but this was slightly over, so what I did was I filed this ring until it pushed on to this crank pulley. It probably needs checking for 100% for alignment, and then some dots of weld to hold it in place. It could only go on so far, so there's always going to be a lip here, because I don't know if you can see this, but no, you can't really see it, it won't focus that close in, but there's a little lip, and you have to leave room for the belt, which sits on there like so. The other thing you'll notice the difference is this end cover now is different. It's the DSN unvented one, and it doesn't have that inspection plate for the vernier gears. So obviously, to fix that, I looked at the pictures on DSN's website and compared the two, and I'm assuming that DSN make a lot of these parts for Specialist Components, because it was basically just a straight swap. So I ordered a DSN flat cover. It came within a few days, beautifully presented in its little box with all the fittings you need, all the gaskets, absolutely spot on, and it just went on there like a dream, because it's exactly the same shape, same fittings, and that gives room for my belt to come up here towards where my alternator is going to be. There's a couple of pictures coming up which show how much room I didn't have down here, and you can see the difference between the vernier vented style timing cover and the plain one, and just how much more room this gives me. As you can see, I've got the supercharger mounted up on the end plate, and the timing, I keep calling it the timing wheel, but it's not, a little tensioner wheel, little idler pulley. It's not a tensioner, I suppose, it's just an idler pulley fixed on there, and the water pump pulley in place there. Issues I've had. Okay, well, this end plate, the supercharger, is fastened onto this end plate at the back with 3 bolts. There's one underneath there, one there, and one down the bottom just under here. There's no bolts supplied for this bottom one. There was only 2 in that little bag that I showed you before. The 4 long bolts were these ones, which hold the supercharger in place. The supercharger comes with 4 shorter ones already loosely in place. You just take these out and replace them with these longer ones. I have had to clock the supercharger as discussed previously, so the bottom end is pointing down. The reason I've had to do that is because it was fouling. If you can see down into there, you can see how close it is in the bottom of there, and when it was the opposite way around, obviously this side of the supercharger is a little bit wider because of the egg, the snail shape you want to call it. You can see how it's a bit fatter down here. Well, it was just catching on that corner of the block down in there. So I've got two options. I can either run it this way, as everybody else does, with the front end pointing down, and hope it clears my subframe, but that's going to be determined when I get it in the car. Or I turn it round as I wanted it and have the outlet pipe coming up, and I'd have to chop off a little bit of the block just in there, maybe 5-10 mil, basically that bit that sticks out that used to hold the alternator in place. And the same with this one here. I take a lump off that to clear the top end of the supercharger here and give room for your pipe to go on, your silicone pipe. So that's an option, but that's going to be suck it and see. The next thing I found is I put the air filter on, and as I'd already previously discussed with a guy called David in Scotland who's got this conversion up and running now, I didn't think there was much room between the supercharger and the oil filter, and obviously on the back of the block, or the front of the block in there, is your oil pressure takeoff point, and he said it does force the filter out. So basically this filter is too long, and if you can see, if I try and get the camera down, I'll change there. You see that's your normal oil pressure warning lamp. Now what I have in Bumblebee at the moment is an adapter with that screwed into it, and also on the adapter is my fancy oil pressure takeoff from my SPA gauges, and there's no way in this earth it's going to fit in there. So that air filter needs to be shorter, same shape and shorter by a good 40-50 mil, or we look at getting a cone filter. Now I've already done some cross-referencing on K&N's website, and there is a cone filter that's shorter and it flows just as much air as this one, if not more. So there is a few options, but now that I've got this all in place, I can do some measuring and get a better idea of what needs to be, but that ain't gonna work. So that was that. So, oh yeah, as I said, I've clocked the supercharger, and it's dead easy to clock. There's just two bolts either side, just pull them out, and then this whole section just swings around. It's a piece of cake. Next issue I've got is that the water pump pulley here is catching on the bolts that hold the water pump in place. You can just see my fingers pointing to them there. I've just bodged it for the moment with some bolts just to press it back into place, but as I said, it's not fully lining up and it catches, so that's an issue. Another issue is that this tensioner, no, I keep calling it a tensioner pulley, this idler pulley doesn't align 100% with the supercharger and the water pump and the bottom pulley. It's going to be hard to see, but just down in that edge where the belt is meeting the outer or the inner edge of the pulley, the idler pulley, it's catching. So it's ever so slightly misaligned. From my angle I can see that it's not quite right. Very difficult for you to see, I imagine. So basically the spacer that it sits on needs to be maybe a millimetre and a half thinner to allow that idler to be further towards the supercharger, so the belt sits on a little bit better. You can see there's a bigger gap down this side. I'll try and point the light in the right place and move the camera, but there's a bigger gap at this side than there is, and there's no gap at that side because it's touching. So yeah, I'm having a fun time trying to get it all to fit. The other issue I've had is that the supplied pulley is obviously fine for an MPI or a normal mini alternator, but it doesn't fit mine. The hole in the middle is too big for the shaft on my alternator, and it needs some sort of spacer in there. It went tight, and then I realised it was slack anyway, so I'm gonna have to get a proper one for this Bryce alternator of that size, I think, and see how I come on. Okay, so that was the timing cover done. So since then, obviously I've been having a lot of deliveries, as you would expect. This week's been particularly busy. There's a whole raft of stuff was supposed to come this week, some of which actually did. So what I'll do next is I'll just walk through the parts that came so you can see what I've been buying, and hopefully you can see the progress that has been made. It's all shaping up in front of me now, so I'm almost ready to take the engine out of Bumblebee, I think. Put the gearbox underneath this, but before I do that, what I'll do is I'll take some of these brackets off that you're going to see in a minute for the alternator and trial fit them in the car as it is now before I take the old engine out, just to see if I need to make any big adaptations to it. So that's the plan. So like I said, this week's been particularly busy for deliveries as per usual. This is the oil cooler I got, little Morcal unit. It's 10 row, 115mm long. It's got the dash 6 fittings on the top there, with 8mm outlet. Hopefully that should have plenty capacity, and also be small enough that I can actually get it in the front of the car. The other thing I hunted out to go with that oil cooler were these brackets here, which are off a previous car. I don't know who or which car it was or who made them, but they're absolutely perfect for holding the oil cooler up in line with the airflow at the bottom of the grille, just above the front panel. So I'll be able to use them, pair of them. I also got this, which is a takeoff, 1/8 NPT with a 3mm takeoff. That'll be to go in the plenum somewhere. Well, a pipe will go from that to the dump valve to activate that. I bought these from Mini Spares. These are the inlet gaskets. There's two different types. There's a nice cheap one there, which I think the hole in the middle might be too small if I remember correctly. And then these ones are made out of rubber, and the hole in the middle is the right size, but these are £9 each. So they were an expensive purchase if I don't use them. The other thing that came this week was an intercooler. I got a Smart 4421, I think that's the right name, just off eBay. Good condition. Came with the fan and that I can't use because it's too massive. It wasn't advertised as having the fan with it, but it landed with the fan attached, so bonus. What I'll probably end up doing is trial fitting it, and then I can get these end caps refabricated by Jonathan at JDM. He said he can do these quite easily. JDM is where I get all my dyno tuning done. I've also got the bottom pulley, or the extra pulley that I needed. It's only the bottom one. See the part number there. It's just a generic, I think it was a VW part. It looked to be about the right size and what I needed, so that's fitted, which I'll show you in a second. So these are the parts to make the alternator pulley fit. This is the one that came from Specialist Components. I've got a spacer here. I measured it to see what it needed to be. I think it was 7 or 8mm, something like that. And then this little sleeve goes inside there and over the shaft on the alternator, so it's adapting from 15 to 17, and obviously the standard lock washer and the nut that was on it beforehand, and that sits inside there like that, and that just goes in like that. And you can see luckily I checked all the dimensions when I was ordering it, and it sits down inside there and doesn't get in the way of the washer or the bolt. There you go, that's what it looks like from the back. So that's going to work well. The only difficulty you'll be getting that bush, that metal bush, over the end of the alternator, because no doubt it's going to be very tight. But we'll try that next. Okay, so that was pretty painless. All I've got to do now is go and tighten that knot on the end with the windy gun.